Hi everyone, my name is Adam Cohen, and I am the host of Adam Cohen Today, the podcast. Today I have Shayanne Andujar. He is the host of Sleep is for Billionaires. He is currently an executive of SJA Associates. He's involved in real estate, and finance, and in equity, and in projects with me, and with projects on his own, and is a roundabout character in the music industry, in the real estate industry, and in many other sectors. I'm happy to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us, Shayanne.
Adam, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend. How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Finally made it into the office at 7 o'clock in the evening. What does that tell you?
Hey, it's a busy day, man. Somebody's got to be out here saving the world, right?
Indeed, indeed. I have to tell you, I took an unofficial day off. I don't often do it. I don't often do it. It was the first time the wife and I had a chance just to like be away from the kids for a few hours. And you
Hmm.
don't get that too often. You wait and see when you have kids, you'll understand.
Hey, from your mouth to God's ears, my brother. I'm
I
hopeful
hope
that'll
so.
happen.
I hope so. Wish you many blessings on your family.
Thank
So,
you.
Cheyenne and I have known each other for quite a while.
Mhm.
I'm guessing about 10 years, maybe longer, maybe 11 or 12. I'm not going to count. Once you go past
I
10,
would,
you stop
yeah.
counting, I think, right?
Yeah, around there. I say maybe more in like the eight-ish, because I moved to LA in 2016. I didn't move to the Apex until I would say about 2018, So I know we met around the time that I was there. So yeah, roughly about like 8 years going on.
Long enough to stop counting. I think we're good.
Right. Exactly.
And we've tried to do this podcast a couple of times, but each time we've had some technical difficulties. The first time, your computer wasn't working, and the second time, my camera wasn't working. So this is take three of Cheyenne Andujar on the Adam Cohen Today podcast. Third
Exactly.
attempt, third time lucky, third time a charm, right?
Right. It's always like that, So it's all good. It's all good. I'm just happy to be in your presence. I always looked at you as like a good friend, a mentor, and yeah, and you know what? Secretly, someone I idolize in the finance world. So it's always good to be in your presence, my brother. But thank you for having me on the show. And yeah, I'm looking forward to our discussion. Just to elaborate a little further on the introduction you provided. Yes, so. My name is Shayanne Andujar, sorry, entertainer turned executive. I am currently the founder and CEO of SJA Capital Consultants. I also host a podcast called Sleep is for Billionaires. We're about episode 165, where I interview celebrities and entrepreneurs on how to become an industry professional. My background as an entertainer, I was a musician as well as an actor, and then became a producer of film as well. And then after the pandemic, studios happened to shut down and I wasn't making any money there. So I had to put my salesman hat back on because I always had one foot in sales, one foot in entertainment my whole life. So with a 20-year sales background, I decided to, secure my real estate license, thinking that would be a field that's pandemic proof and recession proof, and did pretty well for some time. And then I discovered raising equity for developers. So yeah, currently involved in those type of deals with you as well. And then taking that new endeavor and applying it to my entertainment background, put me in a position to be of value to filmmakers, where I also raise capital for their films as well. So far things are going good.
And that's interesting. And just kind of set some background. As you know, when I first moved to the United States from the UK,
Mm.
it's kind of funny that they call them united because there is no country less united than the United Kingdom or the United States. There are
That's
these two
another
countries that are
podcast for
far from
another day.
united. But let's just call it the when I moved from sunny old England to the USA. I lived in New York for 10 years, and Cheyenne is also from New
The
York
Bronx,
originally.
baby, the BX.
He is a Boricua. I often tell people I'm
No,
a
I'm
Boricua.
actually Dominican.
Yeah.
Boricuas are Puerto Rican.
Bariquish, not the
Yeah. But
Bariqua,
shout out to my
Bariquish.
Puerto Ricans and shout out to the New York Knicks.
Bariquish. I often tell people I'm a Bariqua, but no one ever believes me.
Yeah, exactly. You don't look like them.
I really don't. I tell them the accent is fake and I learned it in school, but no one ever believes me. A few people
That's
have
funny.
over the years,
That's
actually.
funny.
All right. So let's talk about early days for Cheyenne, and you go also go by the name Johnny Vegas for your recording and for your Sleepers for Billionaires,
Yeah, that
and
was my artist
uh,
name.
and it's like your handle or your stage name.
Hmm.
We weren't asking if you strips or anything like that. We'll just presume that hip
Hmm.
hop. And just kind of set an example. Being in business is kind of like being an entertainer because you have to keep your clientele entertained in order to keep them engaged to some extent. So maybe we'll talk a bit about that a little later, but it's an interesting theory because it's kind of
Hmm.
true. But going back to early days, what kind of inspired you to get involved in, I've heard a lot of your R&B, some of the music that you've done. I hate to admit it, it's actually very good. And what made you want to get involved in music? What was your motivation and inspiration behind it?
Well, growing up in New York City, in the mecca of where hip hop was, founded, you're kind of like slip, fall, and bump your head into a recording studio and just get that inspiration because everywhere you turn, there's always somebody creating music or music playing. I just come from a musically inclined environment. So just being able to kind of get creative in that regard and just find out where my talent lied in it, was always something I wanted to explore. And I actually did. I mean, I released 7 studio albums. I've written for some major artists. I had TV and film placement with my music, so I did some shows, I had a couple songs on radio. So, I had quite a run there. But as far as inspiration, man, it's just my environment. I grew up in New York City, so it was just a lot of music around at the time, and it was, I just thought something would be cool to do because, at the time I wanted to like rap. I was like 8 years old. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know what I wanted. I just thought it was cool. And then, I just practiced the craft, got better at it, started doing shows and then, just kind of grew from there.
Can you rap on cue? If I was to tell you to do a rap right now, can you do it?
I mean, I can, but I prefer they just go to my Spotify and type in Johnny Vegas. But yeah, I mean, I could if I wanted to, yeah.
What about that one they did with Shakira, where like my money doesn't jiggle, it falls. If I was to put you on the spot and say, shoot, go on, do something.
Oh, to rap? Let me see. I want to rap something that kind of aligns with, our podcast, right? I don't want to get into no street gangster stuff. Hold on, sorry. Let me turn this off. Let me see. Pursuing excellence and financial intelligence. Presidents teaching me all the benefits. No Sega Genesis. I was thinking about Benjamins. Network building relationships I'll be leveraging. Building legacies. Educate by example. Used to want a handful. Now I'm keeping the bank full. Thankful for all the lessons that turn to blessings. Progression. All the glory to God's protection. Opportunities leading up to my freedom, motivated by overcoming obstacles in between them, battling all these demons so comfortably. Not coming from a rich family, humble me, but I'm bet a rich family gonna come from me. Gonna take 10 of you to hustle like one of me. Now it's all real estate, baby. I'm busting plays. Just to book an appointment costs 100K. So something like that. Yeah.
Now, did you just make that up, or was that something you've written before?
That's something I've written. I never was the one to just kind of freestyle off the top.
Hmm.
I always found my written work was always better. So I just rather perform
That was
that.
very, very good. I got to be honest with you. That was like just to do that and to shoot from the hip and be ready for it. That takes talent and experience. I mean, I've always been a gifted speaker that can stand up in front of an audience and talk about any subject, any topic, anywhere, anyhow, right or wrong. Once I take a position, I will stand by it. But to singing was not my gift.
Hmm.
The cat always enjoyed my singing, but that was my only fan. Not my
Mm.
only fans, my only fan. The
All
cat.
right, all
Just so we can,
right.
just because we know that words have different meanings these days, right?
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, but now, man, now you're right. I mean, listen, that was something that I had prepared, and even back in the days when I was young, people would always ask me, rap here, rap there. They always pull you in so many different directions. You kind of always have to have something ready. And me being, someone that preferred to write my work versus, just kind of rapping off the top because I wanted to. I wanted to be looked at as an elite, when it comes to rapping, right? So you never want to say anything that is less than. So that's why I wrote it. So that in itself and keeping that prepared, yeah, that's a skill within itself, just memorizing it because at times it's usually like the same people that are around as far as in your environment that always ask you to rap. So you never want the same person to hear the same thing because then they think that's all you got. So having multiple rhymes ready to go, that isn't a skill in itself. But it helped me along the way because having that retention and that good memory allowed me to transfer those skills into my acting career where I was able to look at a script and kind of say it to myself a couple times, just kind of how I do with my music, and able to remember really quickly. So when I'm on camera, I don't mess up, because I kind of, developed a process on how to remember my lines. So
Right.
yeah.
And there are some people who are gifted by the ability to remember and rehearse, and some people who are gifted to shoot from the hip. Now, you might remember that when I was in LA, you filmed some of my videos for my that we did for the business for the first Access
Yep,
Mentor.
yep,
We
yep.
did a
That
number of
was
videos.
another
Yeah,
endeavor I
and
practiced. Mhm.
Cheyenne was kind enough as a friend to help me do these videos. And you'll remember how awful I am at remembering lines. And you had to do question, answer, cut, right? Question, answer, cut. Because I can't remember lines for 5 seconds. I have the 8 second memory goldfish syndrome. And recently, I've started doing some videos for some new projects that I have, and I'm doing them on my phone, and I have my little mic. By the way, excellent value for money. $30. Great for noise reduction on Amazon. If you're going to
Mhm.
start shooting videos, I highly recommend it. It really is good for noise reduction. I'm sitting here in my studio and there's a bit of an echo because I have like marble floors. It's not so bad, but it's I bought a great microphone and I just haven't figured out how to connect it to the computer. So I'm like, where do I put
Yeah, hey,
it?
YouTube University, my friend.
Yeah, I know, right? I need to do that. But
Mhm.
so it's very hard to shoot. Like when you want to shoot a video for a minute, you need to kind of know how long to talk for, how to speak quickly, but not too quickly, not to whatever your way through it. If you want to do something for 3 to 5 minutes, it's hard because you don't, if you're reading, you sound somewhat robotic. You'll be like, uh, hello, my name is Adam Cohen and I am from, and it sounds rather flat. If you remember
Mhm.
it sounds like you're kind of nervous trying to repeat it. And when you shoot from the hip, it's good, but you get anxious halfway through and you're trying to remember everything you want to say in a cool, calm, and collected manner. And it's not as easy as it looks. People that do that, I actually have a lot of respect for because it's not easy to do. It's not easy to talk about a subject. And although we see these videos on Instagram and on YouTube and it looks like it was a one shot, I think we both know that people that do that shoot that video maybe 50 times before they get one that's good. Because when I shoot a video, it's normally, I'm going to say somewhere between 5 and 12 attempts before I get one video that I like. I don't know about you, but that's my personal experience.
Listen, I've been on multiple TV sets and film sets, and when it comes to like these sitcoms, literally it takes one shooting day, minimum 13 to 15 hours, easy,
Yeah.
and they save room for, like people that mess up their lines and going from scene to scene and making sure, the sets are created accordingly and stuff like that. So with you just, kind of shooting from the hip on one scene, like imagine if you have multiple people and we're all going through like a 90-page script and trying to, complete a whole season, which is 10 episodes in like 15 days, right? So each day has to be accounted for, and you have to finish on this day to kind of keep the schedule going accordingly, right? So everything has to be precise. So yeah, man, and you just kind of winging it, versus someone who does it professionally. Imagine the skill level, how it has to be, risen to the highest level to actually perform at that level, right? So
And
yeah.
I'm ready to be the next James Bond. It's like I get stopped all the time. People thinking that I am the last James Bond. Like people always like, Mr. Daniel Craig, Daniel Craig. I'm like, no.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
You,
hey man, go ahead and
you probably
audition.
recognize my picture in the post office.
So what else, man? What else we got cooking?
So anyway, so let's talk a little bit about Sleep is for Billionaires. Now, Cheyenne also has his stage name, as we said, Johnny Vegas,
Mhm.
and he has a show called Sleep is for Billionaires, which I've been on a couple of times. Technically speaking, the only guest that's ever been twice. I do understand there was another person who also, technically speaking, has been on twice. But of
Right.
160 something guests you've had on the show, I also
Mhm.
take it as an honor that, technically speaking, I'm the only one who intentionally came on twice.
Right, right, right.
Intentionally. So,
Right. But yes, the Sleep is for Billionaires. That actually was the title of one of my musical compositions that I released. It was titled Sleep is for Billionaires. And then when I moved to California, I was trying to think what was the fastest way to build a network. And since podcasts were just kind of emerging, I figured I was like, okay, well, let me start a podcast. I kind of have some credits and some visibility in the marketplace. So, it wouldn't look like I'm just a beginner, even though I was as a podcaster, but not necessarily as an entertainer. So I thought the transitions would be easy. So I started a podcast called Sleep is for Billionaires, and I was just doing all the outreach myself to all those celebrities. And then being that we lived in a nice building at the time, I utilized the amenities as the location. So I didn't have to pay additional monies to secure that. And then I was already advanced as a video editor and a camera guy already, to my prior endeavors in entertainment, film and stuff. So I just again transferred all those skills into my own project. So I would once I booked the guests, I would have everything already set up when they arrived. And again, through all those guests that I mentioned, like 165, the goal was to allow the podcast to be a moment for us to get to know each other and really identify how we can add value to each other. So I was attempting to turn my guests into colleagues, in some way, shape, or form, and also friends as well. So that just kind of stepped and repeat that cycle, to grow the network. And then it just took me to where I'm at today.
so it's an interesting thing. So I'm a little older than you, but not by much. And maybe one generation more, right?
Mhm.
But the younger generation aren't so communicative as far as the ability to communicate by speech. Everyone can text and post on Instagram, but this communication by way of one-on-one dialogue is definitely something that the younger generation are not experiencing. But having said that, I feel that there are types of personalities and characters and locations that are better suited for the gift of the gab, as we say in England, the ability to speak, communicate, and share. Now, you're from New York and I'm from London, but I lived in New York for 10 years, and I think English people by nature are quite chatty and talkative and are generally quite conversationally capable. But I find a lot of Americans are, it's hard to have a lengthy conversation with them, except for New Yorkers. New Yorkers can carry a conversation about pretty much anything, anytime, any place, anywhere. It's like we always used to say that there's a thing called Jewish goodbye where you're saying goodbye and it's like 8 o'clock and at 10 o'clock you're still saying goodbye because everyone's still talking. But I learned in New York that people are very able to communicate. And do you think that your success with Sleepers for Billionaires and your success in the other things that you've done is, do you think New York had a pivotal role in that, or do you think that's just who you are?
Well, both, because New York made me who I am, right? Because that's where I was born. So, growing up in the concrete jungle, right, you have to be, a certain type of an individual to even, survive, not just as an adult, but even as a kid, right? Going to school and, avoiding getting picked on and, really just kind of growing that thick skin from a young age, and I played sports. So I always as a basketball player, kind of had that competitive edge and that hunger for success and just that drive, right? And New York kind of just instills that in you because it's so fast paced, and then you see all these big infrastructure around, and then you see all these high net worth individuals running around. So as a child, you kind of idolize that and be like, I want to be that one day, right? And you kind of see the momentum that they have, and it's like, okay, so I have to move at that speed or even better to even get that close. So that kind of was instilled in me at an early age. So taking that just energy into my endeavors, I knew that I had to really kind of bring it. And then when I moved to Florida, I noticed that they were like so like slower in their pace when it came to
Significantly
that
so.
type of environment. So I was able to excel because I was coming with that energy, like, who is it? I gotta get it, I gotta get it. So that's just so I would say New York had a lot to do with it, but yes, it definitely instilled it in me, and it's a part of who I am. As far as the conversation piece, I mean, think about it. It's like that millions upon tens of millions of people there, right? So the interaction is like that. So you kind of can't waste any time when it comes to communication. So you kind of have to, identify someone's purpose or your value to that person right away, and this is after you've had so many years of wasting time and endless useless conversations or people wasting your time and blah 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 to even get to that point. So yeah, New York definitely made me who I am in that regard for sure.
It's interesting that you say that because I started my first business in London when I was 16
Mhm.
and I learned to hustle. My father had run his own business, all his friends ran their own businesses. I don't think I knew anyone from a young age that had a job. And I started my first business was 16 and a lot of my friends were laughing at me and,
Mhm.
oh, you're stupid and you're not doing this and you're not doing that. Meanwhile, at 18, I'm driving around in an 80,000 pound Aston Martin and they're driving around in their old bangers and they're living in like crappy student housing, and I'm living in a penthouse and flying first class and staying in the best hotels. So one could debate, but I would say I moved to America, to New York specifically, when I was 26 years old. And I had one of the things I always say to people is if you want to succeed in business, live in New York for at least 2 years. Not 1 year, because it'll take you 1 year to find your way around and find your feet. The second year is what's important. The first year is the learning curve. The second year is what you do with it. And when I moved to New York, my plan was 1 to 3 years. Really, two was my goal. And I just fell in love with the city, and I ended up living there for 10 years. I moved there when I was 26 and left when I was 35. Almost 36 years old. I was right on the edge. So I always say that New York made a man out of me. I was a smart, gifted kid who had 10 years of business experience by the time I moved to New York, but I was still very ill prepared for New York. And within 1 to 2 years of learning my way around New York, I was then able to take everything I learned over the 10 years of being in England as a business owner and the 1 to 2 years of learning my way around New York to apply that in my own unique way. And I think that New York made a man out of me. It took the boy from me and made the man out of me. And it made me strong and it made me fast paced. It made me competitive. It made me capable of understanding the highest and best way to solve a problem and to do it in the shortest possible time so that I can take that information and win. Because whilst you're doing all of that, someone else is already putting together their plan to beat you. So New York to me is one of the greatest places to learn business education that possibly exists in the world. And the reason why I favor New York over Chicago for that is I think Chicago people don't really have the same personality and vibe as New Yorkers. Whenever I meet people from Chicago, for the most part, they're very serious. Very, very serious. But New Yorkers kind of have this special sense of humor, which the only place I would say comparable is maybe Boston. All right, but New York up until I don't know 7 or 8 years ago was the most unique and amazing place to possibly be. So it's curious to see how you responded to that because as you and I both know, we met in Los Angeles, and I think a lot of Californians are highly educated people who just don't apply the same level of New York. It just has that special ingredient that I don't think you can replicate it anywhere else.
Well, Los Angeles specifically is like a combination of New York and Florida, and that's my observation of it. Just because yes, you can perform at a high level in business here for sure in multiple sectors. But it has like a relaxed kind of vibe. And it could be because of the good weather, that we have, right? That just kind of keeps you at ease. But again, to the point of being able to perform at a high level in a business and finance world, you kind of have it like to where you can do 1 or 2 deals a year and be kind of set for the entire year, right?
Yes,
You can just
yes,
kind of
that
cozy
really
the rest of the year
that
out.
really is the California mentality. Oh, I closed a big deal. Now it's time for vacation. Where New Yorkers kind of mentality is I closed a big deal. I want to do another one tomorrow. All right. That's probably the
Right.
biggest difference between New Yorkers and Californians. But also New Yorkers are very thick-skinned. You can insult them all day. They don't care. It's all about, are we making money? Are we not making money? One thing I learned about Californians, and every state's got a different kind of vibe. Californians are a lot more sensitive. They're easier to offend. As I said, they're highly educated people in business, but they approach things very differently to New York. And New York is more about Napoleon's charge. Let's attack, attack. We'll figure it out as we do it. And Californians are more, we'll plan it out before we do it. And I think that's the biggest difference really between the two. And it's just a very different mindset from the Atlantic to the Pacific. Very, very different.
I get it, man. I get it. I mean, yeah, man, you're right. I think depending on how you grow up will determine that act outcome, and how you kind of receive and perceive things and how you handle things as you
Also,
move
yeah.
along in your journey.
Also, my generation, even though I'm Jewish, I went to an all-boys Catholic school. And my generation, we made fun of each other non-stop. We didn't call it bullying, we called it character building. We
Yeah.
poked fun at each other, we laughed about each other, about skin color, religion, about height, strength, sports, grades. We made fun of each other. You couldn't do one thing without being picked on by everyone around you. And what it did is it made you strong. The young generation were so cautious about saying anything to upset them that it's making them very easily offended and honestly weaker. And I think it's something we need to kind of think about because the young generation, if you say something to offend them, they're so upset about it. It's a little shocking because they need to be bubble wrapped all the time. Coming from London and living in New York, and my business has been in New York for 25 years, I consider myself very much a New Yorker, as much as you. And I may have even had more of a connection with New York than you just because you lived there and then you left. I left, but I still have my business there. So it definitely changes who you are and how you approach. Now let's talk about SJA Associates.
SJA Capital Consultants.
You keep changing the name, it's not my fault.
I never changed it.
It's SJA something.
Not exactly. Capital Consultants. So
Let's just call it SJA.
no worries. So
First of all, what
SJA.
does SJA stand for?
So it's my initials. So Cheyenne Jehovah Andujar is my full name,
Really?
and
Name and
SJA is
date of birth, social security number, address. Can I get a copy of your ID?
nah, no good, no good. So yeah, SJA Capital Consultants. So we focus on real estate sales and private capital advisory, within the real estate sector, as well as alternative investments within films. And a little bit in tech, but mainly in real estate.
Uh-huh. Now, have you bought and sold any real estate in the metaverse?
You know what? I actually did, but I found out it was a scam. So,
I do not understand this whole metaverse. It's like, is it like a parallel universe that we have to climb into in order to get into? I just don't understand people buying real estate it's just something that for me it just goes right over my head. I'm pretty tech savvy, I can understand things, but the whole metaverse, it just went in one ear and out the other.
yeah, I think it was just a fad. I think the people that got duped were duped because they assumed that more elite brands like McDonald's and KFC, whatever, were going to buy property in there as well. So the consumer assumed that if they buy property in the area that those bigger entities were coming into as well, that their value would increase, just like in traditional real estate. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. So that's that. But the metaverse, they still utilize it to create fan engagement and experiences through the Oculus devices that Meta has and all that stuff. But yeah, but we focus everything in the real world with tangible assets, selling real estate here in California, mainly in Los Angeles County. And we also have some developments out of state where we help the developers pre-sell their units upon, their developments. So yeah, that's what we got going on.
And what do you think the future for Shayanne, Andujar, or SGA, whatever, SGA advisors? Sorry. What do you think the future is? What do you think the next 10 years is going to look like?
I want to help people solve really big problems, right? And to your point, when you mentioned finding the best possible solution in the shortest amount of time. I, you know, thrive off of that thesis, right? Being able to solve the problem of finding capital, right? Of finding tenants for units, or finding investors for houses. That's my purpose today. So being able to solve that problem in a timely fashion through the network that I've built all these years, is what I wake up that what wakes me up every morning. So continuing that, and then just having a large portfolio of deals already closed, and then venturing off into being an investor myself.
What do you think over, say, the next 5 to 10 years is going to be your, what do you think is going to make your business easier to accomplish? And what do you think are going to be the biggest challenges that we're going to face? Because I think there are some things in the world that are definitely making it easier to do business, like internet, social media, and some things like that. And I think there are greater challenges like political infrastructure, freedom of movement or lack of freedom of movement, CB, central banks, and digital currencies. What do you think are going to be the tools that will make it easier for you, and what do you think are going to be the biggest handicaps and hurdles?
Well, that was a loaded question, so I'll start with the part of it I remember. So I do, as far as like challenges, and when it comes to tools, I would say learning every a tool that comes into the market that I'm able to leverage in my business to create more of like a hands-off workflow and system and process, if you will, and just kind of being completely autonomous, in that regard, to where, we have these AI agents already developed and deployed that can just kind of handle everything, that all the, the task things, that whether it's sending emails, drafting emails, whether it's following up with clients, whether it's calling clients on the phone and having like an AI kind of handle that, to where, I'm kind of just handling the closing side of the deals, and I know that's specific to every business, but kind of creating that infrastructure and having multiple agents under me is a bit of a challenge currently, but that's the goal.
And how do you think AI is your friend, enemy, or frenemy?
It's your friend. Well, it's your friend for sure. It's your friend, and because it's a tool, right? So utilizing this tool to supersede a certain process that you have to get you to your goal sooner, I mean, that sounds like an ally to me.
And if you had to say that there was a big move in your, call it imminent, foreseeable, or further out future, where do you see yourself living, operating out of in the next
I
3 to
mean,
5 years?
listen, one thing about being a laptop entrepreneur, you get to be able to work from wherever, and me, having, yes, I have a California real estate license, but having, well, obtaining a series license when it comes to raising capital allows you to kind of be anywhere, because these developments, they're in Orlando, Florida, they're in Houston, Texas, they're all over the place, right? And the money can literally come from anywhere. And having a network, to where you can share deals via email or over the phone with other brokers allows you to kind of, you physically to be anywhere, but be able to facilitate it virtually. So for me, I mean, I do have plans on moving back to Florida.
Where in Florida, Miami areas that you want to live in? You want to be close to your good
Yeah,
buddy here.
yeah. I do want to be closer to Miami for sure. Not necessarily in Miami, but close to it. I used to live in Tampa for a while. I don't want to go back there. I feel like I done seen everything Tampa has to offer, and I'm just don't want to
Did
go
we
back.
nuke it?
Huh?
Did we nuke it?
Nah. It's just yeah. But I got some family there though. I would go visit for sure. But yeah, man. So that
Well,
is it.
I have to tell you, all the best New Yorkers are in Miami right now.
I know that's right.
And Mondani isn't one of them, thank God.
Right. Another podcast for another day.
Yeah, right. You
Uh-huh.
know, right-wing conservative here, not going to apologize for it. There we go.
Right. Yeah,
I don't think
man.
I'm
Nah,
surprising anybody either.
exactly. Nah, but I
Well,
appreciate you having me on the show, man. This is really cool. I like what you got going on. I like what you're building. I like the people you have on your show. That they're definitely a high level at their specialty. and that's cool, man. It's cool. It's good to see you building this networking web, that hopefully will bring you more business.
Well, I only bring people on that I respect professionally or personally, occasionally both. And um, we've had an interesting group of characters on so far. We have
Mhm.
great characters lined up that will be joining us in the upcoming weeks. And I enjoy doing this podcast, not so much for my benefit, but obviously I want to create an inspirational platform for other CEOs, other entrepreneurs, people who are just starting out, whatever the case may be. But it's all about the story and the journey. I used to have a slogan on my website saying it's not about the destination, it's about the journey to get there. And it's the journey is the adventure. Like when you get there, to be honest, it's not as exciting as you meant it to be, which is why even you see successful people who have accomplished everything they want to do doing something else. Because once you reach that goal, you'd be surprised. It's like, yeah, done it. Now what? Right? It's, it's
Same, man. Same. I'm the same.
my dad at 80 years old was writing books and still figuring out what he could do to hustle. He never wanted to stop. I'm like that. And I think that for many people, they need this motivation, this inspiration to hear about people's journey. And it's funny, I've known Cheyenne for a long time, as I've said at the beginning of this show, but I respect him enormously because he's seen some challenges since the time that I've known him, and I've seen some challenges in the time that he's known me, and nothing gets him down. He's always smiling, confident, strong, planning, motivated. And these are qualities that I respect in a person very highly. And I always want to be around people like that because there are a lot of people who take a hit, they go down, and they don't get up again. And that is not someone who's ever going to survive in business. To be in business, you've got to take that hit on the chin, laugh about it, get back up, brush off the dust, and say, "I'm gonna do it again now." And failure doesn't teach you weakness. It doesn't teach you that you can't do it. It teaches you what you did wrong. Let's try something different today. And I always say in finance and in business, it's very much a trial and error industry. You will not always get it right the first time, or the second time, or the third time, or the fifth time, or the 10th time. It's about understanding there's changes, evolution, there is things that you need to apply differently to reinvent yourself. And that's why I started this podcast. And I think my friend Cheyenne here is the perfect example of someone who I respect, admire, and who I've seen go from his musical career into uh, a, a fantastic podcast that he does, Sleep is for Billionaires, and he does it really, really well. He's had some great people on there. I would know something on there, and and he's someone that is accomplishing great things in real estate and in business, and it's always a pleasure to sit down with him one on one and have this conversation. And as we do very frequently off camera and just on the phone, we laugh, joke, make a little fun about each other,
Mhm.
and that's what business and friendship is all about. It's about building those relationships and about what have you. And the podcast that I do here for Adam Cohen today, which officially is going to be a Cohen TV Productions, but I'm doing this to inspire and motivate the next generation to be creative, to be confident, to know that life isn't all about success. There's some failures too, and you have to overcome it. Life is about learning, growing, and evolving, being willing to explore different avenues because where you start and the goal that you have when you start it isn't necessarily where you will finish. Opportunities to come up along the way, and sometimes they just capture your attention or your imagination or your inspiration, and you apply it. And I think I've watched Cheyenne over the years follow those inspirations. And to be honest with you, I have a lot of respect for him. I think he's a wonderful communicator and is great at what he does. And it's always a pleasure to have him as a friend and to have him on my podcast. And I'm sure he'll be back again, I hope, in the future.
For sure, man. Just let me know, man. I'll pull up.
Is that an R&B phrase? I don't think I've heard that one before.
Yeah, that means I'll stop by.
You'll stop by. Is that a California thing, a New York thing?
Maybe it depends.
All
But yeah,
right.
man, you're right, man. And thank you again. I appreciate you having me, man. This is cool. And yeah, man, keep doing your thing as well, brother. I'm happy to see where this Adam Cohen production takes you.
Well, thank you very much. Everyone, you've been watching Adam Cohen today. Thank you, Shayanne and Andujar, for joining us, and we'll see you again next week. Take care.
No problem.